Hi, everyone. Welcome to our webinar. Before we get started, just give a few introductions, both myself and of the Imerys team. My name is Chad Jones. I'm one of the solution engineers for BICO. I've been with BICO now for about 2 years, having been in the ocean transportation industry for a little over 30, with the last few being here on the software side, doing implementations. And in the last couple of years, I have come to know and love the Imerys team that we're going to be talking to today. So with that, I'll ask them to introduce themselves.
Christy Jordan, International Logistics Manager, and I would say the same, come to love Chad and all things BICO. So welcome.
Thanks. I am Jing Feng. I am the transport category lead for Imerys. I am responsible for anything related to transportation purchasing within Imerys.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Alex Boko. I am Alex Boko. I am the Director of Logistics for Central and North America and Global Export. I have been with Imerys for just over 4 years, came over from Georgia Pacific previously and other companies prior. Glad to speak with everyone today.
Great. Well, thank you for the introduction. So today, the way this is going to work is I'm going to ask the guys here some questions and get them to share their experience and what's been going on at Imerys over the last couple of years with regards to their supply chain and the changes they've been making. And we'll try to expound on that a little bit as we go. So maybe we could start by having you just provide us an overview of your current container shipping business.
I'll kick it off and ask my friends here to add color. So Imerys is a global company positioned in various regions throughout the world. The team here is based out of primarily US and Mexico, and I see we have some friends from Mexico on the line here. We manufacture and export to all parts of the world for many different customers. We do use majority of the large ports that most will think about, right? If you talk about US, you'll have LA, Long Beach from California, you'll have Seattle, Atlanta, then up the Northeast through Montreal, and various ports to Mexico. So move through many different ports and ship to many different port destinations. So of course it brings some complexities and requirements. And I think that's why we're here to talk about how do we do that best and what type of tools are required to perform that on a benchmark top level. Anything to add to that?
Yeah.
What about the types of products that you manufacture and transport? I know that you're a mining company, but what kind of products do you actually ship?
Great question. We do mine minerals, a variety of types, and I won't go into different minerals, right? It is raw material for many different industries. We support many different channels. I'll give you a high level in terms of finished goods, what we consumers would anticipate to see or understand. I have a cheat sheet here because there are many different applications. I'll give you the top ones here. We play in the food and beverage industries, support health, pharma, biotech, paints and coatings, plastics, ceramics, building products, cosmetics and personal care, rubber, so you can think of tires, right? Sealants, various flooring from hard floors to carpets, and lubricants. There's a great variety beyond that, but I'll give you a high level that our materials play a significant raw material component role to many different industries around the world.
Interesting. Yeah, I imagine most people don't realize all the various components that your minerals do go into. I know I didn't. So now I know that you just mentioned those areas that you ship out of from the US, and I'm assuming you're shipping basically globally from the US. How is it that you currently do that? You collaborate directly with carriers, or what is your current booking process through forwarders, or is it a combination? Do you have in-house forwarding? Maybe you could speak to that a little bit.
Great question. There are many different strategies and approaches around the industry globally. I'm going to ask my close colleague here, Christy, to talk about the capability that we operate here.
Yeah, as you mentioned, Chad, in-house freight forwarding, that's what we have here at Imerys, and that is the team that I get to lead. Very happy to do so as well. And so we have a group that focuses solely on working with the carriers and making the bookings. And so that's a focus for our team. After purchasing is set forth everything that we need and the customers make their orders, we will come in and set the bookings through BICO. And so we act as an in-house forwarder for all the booking and documentation needs.
Okay, so you do all of that in-house. You're not doing it with any sort of external, and you do it directly with the carriers. You have your own contracts, I'm assuming, therefore, with the carriers.
That's correct. So the service contracts are set with the carriers, with our purchasing team, with the help of Jing and her team. And then, yes, we will, well, of course, we can work with the carriers directly, but we now interface with the BICO system. But yes. Did that answer your question?
It does. So that leads into my next question already. Thank you. With that, you are using BICO now, which is why we're here together. What sort of brought you to make that decision? What sort of challenges were you encountering in your shipping life that led you to start looking and then eventually choosing BICO as a solution?
I think that's a Jing.
Yeah. So we would have contracts managing one process, and then we will have rates for supply chain in another spreadsheet, and then we don't have measurements of free time. Whenever we get bills, invoices on free times from the carriers, we don't have the data. We don't have a good way to measure that, so we have to go to the different carrier sites to track. So we didn't have a carrier scorecard. Trying to get information on shipment data was hard to come by. Allocation management was difficult. So we needed a system where we can gather everything is in one system. So we can run reports, we can get measurements of free time. We can be able to be able to dispute, with data. So, in which that's what led us to BICO.
Yeah, and if you think of most recent history, right, there was a significant need, especially everybody moving through COVID, with tremendous delays, labor challenges, shutdowns, right, across the globe. Having better visibility, speed to not just data, but speed to information. Our previous processes were highly manual. When I say manual, that means one associate may have to access 10 different websites, depending who we're shipping with, right? Working with the drayage carriers separately, spreadsheets offline, static information, going to different websites for updates, asking people to manually track port date updates, vessel date updates. Not obviously the most efficient mousetrap, I'll say, right, strategy. And that highlighted and gave us a platform to speak with upper leadership to get buy-in and investment in what I would call a control tower of where you do all the work, where you have full visibility. You are not dependent on emails. You're not dependent on Excel spreadsheets. You're working a single tower that provides a full end-to-end visibility. And I'll say, with COVID, unfortunately, there had been tremendous turnover in all industries. Being able to onboard new talent and train them on the processes instead of files and spreadsheets, right, on people's emails and on people's laptops. Being able to train a person on a single cloud-based platform is far more effective. So our learning curve completely decreased for new talent, especially as we scale, to be more effective. You can think about when people will take vacations. Unfortunately, people get sick. Sometimes you have to restructure the team to your needs. Being able to flex and quickly get to the information is what we needed, and that's what we looked to. I think we spent about a year and a half looking at many tools, many solutions. We have platforms for trucks. We have platforms for rail. and we needed a state-of-the-art benchmark, evolving, constantly growing TMS solution for our marine logistics. And this in-house capability has been a competitive advantage for Imerys. And I believe having such a strong platform, or we believe is a strong platform for our experience, gives us a competitive advantage in the marketplace to provide further services and better visibility for our customers, and a better experience for our employees as well of how we actually do the work.
I think I would probably add part of the reason why we chose BICO was flexibility. We saw a lot of flexible reportings and resources, and so we saw some other tools that wasn't as flexible as BICO was. And then the CO2 measurements that was available in BICO that we really didn't see in a lot of other tools. So that was something I felt like there was a competitive advantage.
That's true. Offline reporting is always a challenge, right? It's static information. So ease to information, and we know that per diem became a very big topic for everyone.
Yeah.
So
especially during COVID.
During COVID,
Yeah.
right? Ease of information and more effectively, more clearly being able to dispute where appropriate. Again, it's back to, the world's moving to information data, big data, right? Information data. Getting there more quickly is what our goal was, and I believe that's what we're able to do now. And honestly, we continue to grow as the platform continues to grow as well with the marketplace. Chad, that's a long-winded answer, but
no, that's kind of what we're looking for. Why, what is the information behind it? Because my thoughts on when I was on a different side in a different industry and we were looking for software, what you started looking for sort of changes once the process starts, because you realize there are things you hadn't thought of before, and you notice other things you either want to have or you need, and maybe you didn't know it until you saw it, and then you're like, oh no, that is something we want. And Jing, you mentioned CO2, that growing in importance for a lot of companies. I know that Imerys has some CO2 objectives that they're trying to meet on a global basis. So if BICO can help you meet those, then that's great. And maybe it wasn't something that was necessarily key when you started. It becomes more important for you as time grows. So
yeah, it wasn't on the radar until we realized it was available.
Right. And then once you know it's available, then it's something you can take advantage of and then add to your corporate goals. Exactly. So now that you have chosen BICO, I mean, how has it really changed your setup? I mean, you've implemented the solution now, but what has it changed for your users? I mean, how do they work with it on a daily basis?
I'll
have Christy to
maybe
speak for her team on that.
Yeah, and then
experience.
we can talk about the purchase.
Okay. Yeah.
After,
Yeah. So what I'll share is, for our team, as we implemented the use of BICO, what we're seeing is, it's more streamlined collaboration amongst ourselves. We are able to, I think Alex touched base on this, but we're able to jump in and see where any shipment is at any time. We can get the information. It's all right there. And it is, live time. So it's constantly updating with, correct information for the shipment. So we appreciate that. That makes things a lot more streamlined and easier for us to get our tasks done, move forward, understand where a shipment is. Additionally, you can, bring in participants, and you have available to, limit the access, so you can give them as much access or limited, but they can participate and see the shipment as well. So you're, cutting out that back and forth, people trying to figure out what's going on with their shipments, but if have access now, they can see it. Additionally, we have started, with and again, we see this changing constantly, because we're always evolving what we're doing and adding on additional plant sites and mining sites and customers and things like that. But again, so the plant sites, they're able to go in and provide information to us and just put it in there immediately. We've also started working with our drayage providers, and now we eliminate spreadsheets, and we have that direct communication, and everyone can see everything all at one time. And I think that's one of the biggest things that is beneficial to our team is just having the same information across the board available at all times, right? And then also, just one place that you go to create your bookings, create, the information instead of the multiple carrier sites. And that is also very beneficial. So we're finding all the time, especially as BICO rolls out new things as well, we can take advantage of, and it just always is improving our business flow. And I think Jean had something to add to that too.
Sure. One of the things that is our initiative this year is scorecards for our suppliers. BICO already have that built in, so that gave us a good way of quantitatively measure and analyze our carriers and the performance that we didn't have before. So before it was kind of like, I don't like the supplier. I don't feel like the supplier is doing a good job. And so you should not give cargo to the supplier. We hear that a lot on the purchasing side. It's a lot of feelings, but now we can have quantitatively measurements that we can use to say, hey, this supplier's performed well. This is what the measurements is showing. And so we can use that as part of our purchasing strategy to have those discussions internally as well, to help in the end, as well as evaluations externally. So externally, we have had conversations with suppliers, IT team, in theirs a little bit slow on booking delays, different measurements that we're looking at that we say, hey, this is not right in terms of KPI. So we started working with the suppliers on it. So BICO gave us access to that tool where we can give them data and information where they can easily find improvements on. One thing I actually been able to use BICO for in this most recent negotiation is we've asked for extensive free time a lot. And so one of the things I raised with the suppliers is we don't actually use that much free time at origin or destination. So what I was able to do was pull the data from BICO directly to say, hey, on average, this is how much we use on origin at these ports, and this is how much we use for these customers. So you don't really need to worry about it. The risk to you is very minimal. So as a result, we are able to negotiate the extensive free time because of that. So these are some of the things that BICO really helped us to be able to get the data quickly. Before, I would have to go through I don't know how many resources to be able to get something like this, but now I can pull it out within like minutes, which is great when we are in these negotiations.
That's really interesting to hear a real world example because, sitting on my side of the table, for me, they're all theoretical, hoping that you can use them well. And here you are using it in a way, that I hadn't really thought of, which is comparing the tree time to what you use like that. Most of the people, like you said, want to see how much they're spending so they can control costs. But in this case, you got to use it the other way, which is.
Another good example I want to add, actually, this is something we did. Remember, when the Red Sea had happened, when all those shipments were having to have to divert because of the Red Sea stoppage, we had to go through South Africa. And so we were trying to figure out how many shipments was it impacted, how many customers was impacted. We were able to get those data and proactively inform the customer on the delays and measure like how much of an impact. So this is something that, this was something we were able to accomplish through BICO as well. Before we would have to trace every single shipment. Yeah.
Yeah, and I'll add and give credit to BICO on being proactive and understanding the market, paying attention to the marketplace, right, and geopolitics. BICO coming out on your own accord, I'll say, and offering a tool, a dashboard of, we understand the situation. Here's a dashboard for you to see all of your movements through Red Sea, right, or not sometimes, right, without having to ask for a tool or go develop on our own. BICO as a company proactively providing a solution is I think sets the company apart, being aware of what the market needs are.
Yeah.
And go ahead, Jing, I'm sorry.
No, we were just I was echoing what Alex was saying. He's absolutely correct, because we see other companies not doing the same thing. They're very after the fact, the customers have to go and chase for it. And then BICO is very in tune with the market and able to provide that. I think that was something that we actually was amazed about.
Yeah, from BICO's perspective, I know that for the Red Sea, for Panama Canal, and even for the Port of Baltimore, we felt it was really important to be able to display that information as quickly as possible so that our customers like you didn't have to go searching for it or come to us and say, hey, is there some way we can find this in the system? Whereas we're like, well, let's just give them a way to compile it really easy. Everyone's going to need it, so let's just go ahead and put it out there. There's no reason to do it some other way. So yeah, that's interesting to see how that you used it. Now that a lot of those KPIs you mentioned were for the external side, but I'm assuming you have some on the internal side as well that maybe you use the system for. I don't know if you use it for BLs or allocation or anything like that.
Chris, you want to take it all as color?
Sure. We do. We use BICO to manage and review our KPIs, and we set tasks. So you have this wonderful feature where we set our tasks. We have them, available to each participant. They're tagged so they know what they have to accomplish. And of course, we're trying to meet our KPIs, including the BL. We want to have it uploaded into the system so we know it's been completed properly and that the shipment's been moving forward. And I think we also have the KPIs. We're looking at bookings and the turn times on those as well, which may be a little bit more for purchasing to review. But we do take advantage of the task system so that we can look at that. And then also BICO has the reporting functions. I know we're working on something where, you've got your set time frame for KPIs, and it's a great tool so you can quickly see what might be outside of KPI, needs to be urgently addressed, or is potentially going to be outside of KPI. So we can quickly identify those and just put some spotlight on them and see if we can resolve it. So it's very useful.
Yeah, I think it enables us, internal KPIs, to be proactive in terms of gaps, right? The worst case scenario is a customer is notifying you that they have yet to receive documents, or where's my shipment, right? So if we can proactively, and including what we just spoke about, the Red Sea, any delays, if as often as we can, to notify the customer in advance and manage expectations, it lowers the level of anxiety in the unknown. When we come forward and say, yes, the shipment will be 10 days delayed due to transits, and here's why in the world, there's not this open abstract room to wonder and think of all the especially worst case scenarios. Am I going to get my product? I was thinking one specific KPI that I can't think about now. I lost my train of thought. I'm sorry. The exception management through especially the RFP process. We really want to focus on exception management, right? So not just to see all the shipments, but if a shipment has a transshipment leg to be able to be loaded onto a smaller vessel, we want to see if a container is sitting in Jamaica for more than, say, 3 days, right? We need to be aware, not be notified down the road that we still don't have our product. And one, be able to inform the customer, yes, it's late. Two, we are taking immediate action, and we will give you an update when it's moving again, and allows us to engage and work on resolving the situation before it escalates. The exception management through visibility. If we don't have the visibility because we don't have a tool, we cannot do that. So having a tool really enables us to mitigate situations escalating to more than honestly they need to a level that they need to.
And yeah, some of the other usage we've been looking at for KPIs is we get hammered a lot by the carriers to say, hey, you're not using or you're not booking with us, you awarded cargo to us, you're not booking it with us, what's going on? And we can see that more live with BICO to see like, okay, hey, how are when we award to two carriers, how is it split? How is that spread out? And we can see which cargo is booked with which carrier, which supplier, and we can dig more and ask questions. Okay, we see you're booking 60% with the supplier instead of 50-50. What's going on? Why are you needing more toward one supplier than the other? We can see that more live, and we can actually ask supply chain and logistics to say, hey, why is that? And they can explain to me the transit time. It makes a difference. And so we can check on the allocations. The other thing is because we're managing by services, FICO have a way for us to evaluate which service are we not using. Do we need to renegotiate our services with the suppliers based on the service strain? And so that allowed us to evaluate how do we negotiate with the supplier by services as well.
Very interesting. Very interesting. I like that. It's nice to hear the real world examples of how a system is used, which, I don't always see. So now that, you've had BICO implemented for a while, what would you say the impact has been at Imerys? Has it influenced the logistic organization anyway? What changes have you made with the advent of BICO?
I'll kick it off if you want to add some color. Since taking one step back and building on, we want to make sure that we had a tool that's intuitive, meaning ease of use, right? We don't need something complex that's very difficult for people to navigate their way through. So we all have smartphones, right? We want things to be easy and simple to move through. That was a requirement for us. So to us, when we see, if you imagine, BICO is like booking an airplane ticket. It gives you options, different flights, different lead times, transit times, and different price points based on your negotiated rates. And you select the most optimal option for you. Going through that experience, that has been transformative to our company, first starting in the Americas, and now more so moving globally. Understanding that we can do this work more quickly, have a lot more clarity, and bring the state-of-the-art features to it, right? So initially, it was a need for the Americas. We've very quickly moved towards BICO is our system of choice for either in-house capabilities, like we have the Americas, or if there's an external freight forwarder that a region is partnering with, that they're able to connect through BICO and then integrate into our ERP system. So we went to quickly, hey, we have an immediate need locally here in the region this is the global platform for us now, tying into our ERP here soon.
Yeah, I would say for the impact we have on the purchasing side, I think it will allow us to evaluate the trends, the volumes a lot more quickly. Before, in my initial negotiation, I would have to constantly go to Christy and say, Christy, for this lane, how much do we ship? And she's like, let me see. And then she would give back to me in like a day or two after digging through like however many reports she has to find to be able to get me the information. But now during negotiations, we're able to pull the information live in the middle of the negotiation. So that timeliness makes a huge impact, I think. It helps us pull out trends, know what we need to negotiate for, which lanes has volumes, which one doesn't. So we are able to get the information a lot more live and readily available. And that speeds up some of the processes that we have.
Yeah, and I'll agree with that too. Like speeding up the process is one of the largest benefits, I think. BICO is also very user friendly. So as we bring, on the team members, it's easy for them to operate it. It's easy for us to show participants how to access and track their shipments. Also, an impact I think would be on our detention and demurrage, because we're able to quickly review and, basically anything like you said is an exception, is it's sitting at port, we can identify it, work with it, and hopefully avoid detention and demurrage. But we also have the data at our fingertips in order to make any disputes that might be necessary. And then we have the information to back up our claims. So it's been very impactful, very beneficial, and easy to use, which I love.
Yeah, I remember when we did the dispute process on detention to merge, we had to dig through, like, took us almost an hour and a half to do one dispute, just to dig through all the emails, write out the timeline, but that timeline is not available in Bible. And we don't have to search all the emails for information to see how many times the vessel changed. And so that's a huge difference for us versus what we were doing now versus before.
Yeah, and speaking on the visibility piece internally for managing our company, right? You have multiple layers. Some audiences just need to see high level control tower of overall how is our operation performing. Other levels you may need to see just regionally, and then of course you have the users and super users where it's more tactical. What are my shipments? So having a single platform per user, from a user that books shipments to a vice president, you have different dashboards, right? You have different views, and you need that different level of view. I need to see the whole picture, or I need to see my handful of shipments. And being able to have a tool that can accommodate multiple levels, that is a transformative piece to us. Before, we would have people dedicated to running reports. Unfortunately, reports are static dashboards. And if you take those and iterate to 4 or 5 different audiences, that means that you're making that many more presentations every week and every month, versus having an intuitive tool that any user at any level from VP and down can access and get a real-time view of how are things running, what are exceptions.
Very interesting. Now, Christy, you mentioned about processes and changes to processes. I remember when we started, we were talking about the deployment process. And so I think you might have some insights on that, to talk about what was it like to deploy BICO, how much time did it take? Did you have to invest in it? What sort of level of effort was required to do it?
Are you referring to when we went live with it and started using it?
Yeah, like, when we did our training, and we talked about, how would this change? Remember, we would sit around and talk about what might it do to a process, and then y'all went away and did something to it. And then you came back and told me what you did. But yeah, it's
the process is ever evolving, because the more you get familiar with BICO and learn to use all of its resources, of course it's ever changing. And but initially, just like I said, I think the biggest impact for the change of processes was, one location. We had our system, we have BICO, and whereas before you'd have to go to individual steamship line websites, do what you need to do, go back and forth. So it kind of has streamlined the booking process in itself, and just allowed us to pull the information into one location, where we've got, we're looking at our rates, we're looking at our preferred carriers, we're looking at, that information. And as we move forward, again, there's multiple layers where you pull in more of your own people, whether it's, the plant location, the customer service team, the planning, production, whoever. So that helps, right? More information. And because it is a easy to use system, it makes that, more welcoming. Like, here's a new system, but it's so easy to use. And once people do, they're on board with it. Yeah, I forget where I go to the more I talk. But anyway, so then, what I wanted to say is the impact is just good. The processes are good, but it's an ever-changing, situation, but to the positive, where we're finding we have to have less manual things to do, less spreadsheets, and then we're just collaborating in one location. And I think that's kind of the biggest change to our processes. But as we're still learning more, BICO's offering more, it just will be ever changing, and always to the positive. I don't think we've experienced anything that has been anything negative. It's always been beneficial for us.
Yeah, I think that ease of implementation was one of our metrics through our RFP. We started with almost 10 different platforms we elected to consider, and then reduced it down to finalists. And our key questions were ease of implementation, how much time will be required from our IT team, what is the timeline, and what is the involvement from the platform company, right? And what is the level of engagement? Meaning, do we have a dedicated person from the company working with us? Is there a certain level of training, or is it going to be dependent on the users, on our own company to figure out? And after that, what happens? What type of support do we have after we implement? Like all of us have significant experience with many different platforms. We are going through a ERP deployment now, and the platforms we use today, and in other companies we use as well, there's at times some friction in being able to get the resources potentially required in a timely manner, and how quickly companies can move to implement changes, implement improvements. The ease of implementation for BICO was one of the selling points to us. One, Chad, yourself being directly involved from ideation to design, implementation, training, and even now as we use the system and create more and more super users, having that dedicated partnership support, having a project manager from our team as well. The level of IT time required for our deployment was minimal at best. That is rare. Of course, they did their due diligence to vet the securities and others, and that obviously passed since we did implement the platform working together. But otherwise, it was a partnership between the business areas and BICO. We have many sites across Central and North America. To be able to deploy within months with minimal hiccups at best and not having impact to customers, having been through TMS, WMS, ERP implementations through my career of 15, 20 some years, this is the smoothest, most effective implementation I've been a part of. And it's because of the culture and the level of engagement and looking to understand how the business runs. And to be fair, challenging when we need to evolve our thinking, our culture. Let me show you how this is done in the system. Let me show you what the best practice is. Yeah. It's okay and it's good to evolve our business processes as we should, to marry up our business processes and our thinking growing with an ever-evolving tool as well. And I know we have a state-of-the-art system and very knowledgeable users that continue to be very welcome to new functionality and features.
Well, I think too, I mean, y'all have started on BICO in a, kind of in a manual setup, because we're only just now beginning an integration with your ERP. That'll be finished this fall at some point. So even as a manual, I feel like y'all have done an amazing job and efficient job of doing that, because I mean you were working manually before, of course, but now you're working manually in BICO. And I feel like, and Christy, you can probably comment on that better than me, but the process has been one that I think has actually still saved you time, even though it's still manual. And then once maybe we can get that, once the integration is in place, hope to even shrink that time spent down even much more. So what would you say, I mean, I'm going to go ahead and say that we feel like BICO has been a success so far for Imerys. And so what would you say are the key factors that have contributed to the success so far, and what kind of lessons have you learned through an implementation like BICO implementation?
I'll start with saying that developing a clear timeline and the critical milestones must-haves, right? And agreeing to those on both sides with BICO and within Imerys, that yes, it makes sense to both of us. Do we have the right resources? Who else do we need to pull in? And identifying what are the critical paths, what are the big must-haves, right? Chad, to your point, we start off manually on purpose. Let's really understand the tool, the ins and outs, and become very proficient and make sure we maximize our use, and not just part of the features. um, has enabled us to be more and more proficient, but also the access to support, right, Chad? We have access to you very quickly when needed. You'll either provide guidance or direct steps we maybe perhaps take, or be a thought partner, right? We don't have to wait multiple days, and it's also a benefit that you have other resources that you can pull in a timely manner. We've looked we looked at various partners, as I shared, including the ones we work with today in other modes. And that's one of the key factors, no matter what the platform is, the people skill set, the knowledge of the people running the company, running BICO, being able to send the industry, the business, and speaking our language in terms of logistics, supply chain, global trade, right? That, in my perspective, that's been the true key to success. And when it comes to challenges, yes, we may come upon some challenges, or we may perhaps need to do things differently. But what's reassuring, it doesn't become a big problem, is because we're able to think through it together, analyze what needs to be done, and we always get to the how, right? So it gives me a confidence level of, no matter what the challenge will be, and without question, will always be challenges. That's what the supply chain is about, right? What gives me confidence is we have a team, a partner that we can think through together, and I know we know how to do that, the critical thinking, to come up with a proper, swift, as simplified as possible solutions without off-system workarounds.
So now that BICO's in place, things are running pretty smoothly. What are those new areas that Imerys is looking to work on, and those areas where Imerys and BICO can collaborate next?
See?
I think the CO2 emission, we are so focused on making sure everything is working well and everything is implemented correctly, and that all the data is accurate. So we haven't really been focusing on utilizing the CO2 yet. And so I think now we have more and more data in the system, and then we are expanding also the usage in Mexico. That's going to help us evaluate more of how do we reduce CO2 using BICO. I think that's kind of the next step. We're going to start evaluating by services, by vessels, and then utilize those knowledge and those information to negotiate with the suppliers, and say, hey, you gave me a good rate, you gave me this, but this is the service I want, because this service, we noticed the average CO2 is reduced. We can see more the trend transit time. And so that way we can kind of focus a little bit more on reducing the CO2 based with Imerys as a whole, and meet our goal.
Gotcha.
I'll add one element. Working with a partner that is a SaaS platform, cloud-based service, right? Mm-hmm. Having the benefit of newly developed best practices being available to all clients, not custom to a single client, that's a benefit. The more BICO clients bring forward good ideas, we all get to benefit from that. The other piece I say, looking forward, where the world is going, being able to have the conversations we have, they maybe feel abstract right now, but having those creative conversations of, what will predictive analytics look like? What do we think AI will do in the future? How do we step into that world, and how do we integrate those capabilities in the future to the platforms we're using? We may not have answers right now, but I'm glad we're thinking about them, we're discussing them. In an appropriate time, I believe those ideas and advantages will present themselves. And we know we have a partner who we can brainstorm, collaborate with, and figure out what is that next exciting delighter that we can capitalize on together with all BICO customers and BICO as a growing platform.
Thanks for that. Yeah, thank you for that. So those are the only questions I had for y'all today. I mean, it was actually quite a few, but I really appreciate the feedback. So that was it for the questions we had here for the first part of the webinar. Alex, I don't know if you had more for us from the.
Yes, we had some questions. So there was mentioned that you're starting the integration with the Imerys ERP. Can you tell us a little bit more about what are the principles of this integration? What is expected from it, and what value would it bring?
You take it and add to it. Yes. So ideally, and this has been the roadmap. Once we become robust users of the system, to integrate with our ERP, so our central ERP, our single source of truth for managing our entire enterprise, to help mitigate double entry, right? So if you have a customer order in your ERP or system you're using, not to have to carry the order manually to your platform. It may be BICO for Ocean or some other platform for rail or what it may be, right? So for BICO, being able to flow that information, the customer information for an order into BICO, where it presents to the user to the point of here, we're going to start making booking. We're taking out keystrokes, confirming back to the ERP the status, confirming back information such as lead times, ETAs back to the ERP. That gives information back in the system to customer service, right? So that will be customer facing, mitigating have to call or go to other sources to find out ETAs and shipments to help customers understand when their shipments will arrive. They'll have this information at their fingertips. So having truly, and by we say integrated, information flowing back and forth between two systems, integrated as essentially one supply chain, one flow of information flowing back and forth for the transactions in essentially real time.
Thank you. We also have a thread of questions regarding how you, if you use the tool to collaborate with your customers, and how do you do that?
We are stepping into piloting our first trial of creating access for a customer to be able to see their previous shipments and their current shipments. They'll be able to see everything that's pertinent to them, right? And help see or answer questions that they would normally take to customer service or other sources. I expect our pilot will be successful. There's not too much complexity here based on how we know the system and the support we have. And at that point, we'll select strategic customers and work with our commercial sales team to identify which customers can we go ahead and set up their own access for a portal to see their shipments, either historic or current ones for status management. So that is currently in the works in our next venture, so to speak, our next front we're focusing on.
Okay, thank you. And we have also a thread of questions related to the process. So I think you spent quite some time in describing your process and how you were working with BICO according to your processes. So the thread of questions is related to this question. Do you need to adopt a specific process with BICO, or does BICO enable you to adapt the tool to your process? You answered a little bit of this just previously, but maybe you can come back on this one to answer the question.
I'll add to a little bit to it. I felt like there was a lot of things we wanted to do that BICO was able to enable us to enhance our process. So it's not really a adaptiveness that BICO had to do or we had to do. Really, it was more of an enhancement that allowed us to do a lot of things quickly and more efficiently that we wanted to accomplish that we couldn't do before. Do you want to add?
I think it's fair, and it took the processes. Each company has sometimes unique process, right? And sometimes when you step into best practices, that it enables the workflow in terms of you have process steps that perhaps in our previous history we did separately in a silo. With the platform, it allows sequencing and visualization of those process steps So you can see where you are in the evolution of the entire end-to-end process.
Mhm.
So you can still do all the core functions. BICO helps drive towards best practices.
Right.
It has flexibility to a degree, but I also caution, I get nervous when I hear solutions that tell you we can do anything, we can customize anything. I'm not looking for a clean slate where we design from scratch to recreate the wheel. Our team always looks for best practices, repeatable success, and minimize exceptions. So it's essentially not the Wild West, but we are also open to, and we've been successful in discussing how do we do this a bit differently, maybe tweak, but not completely recreate the wheel where we have 5 different processes for one core process. That would be a very, very concerning environment.
And one good thing I would like to acknowledge about BICO was when I did, I think, Chad, I'm pretty critical when we are looking through the systems, and I give a lot of feedback, right, to BICO. Hey, this doesn't look right. Hey, can we adjust this? Whenever we provide feedback, Chad and the BICO team tends to always find a solution, and they would, we would talk it out and find something that would fit not just for us Imerys, but it seems like it would benefit for the customers as well. So that's where I value their flexibility so much. Is they listen to the customer and they pay attention. Oh yeah, that makes sense. Let's see how we can roll this out. And so I seen the improvements for BICO grown significantly from when we started because just through listening to us.
Great, thank you for this. And so last question that we'll have the time to answer today with the time that we have is around deployment to new entities. So basically you are asked if you've already enlarged the usage of the platform to new groups, maybe new countries or new business units, and how has been the task performed?
We have extended the user base. We purposely started with a small base, focused sites, and continue to expand across the network and move to other countries as well. It's fantastic to see that we quickly were able to develop super users on the team that are able to provide training, but not only training, but also ongoing support cross-functionally. At times, we may have to reach out to BICO, to Chad as our primary contact, right, for some clarifications or pointers. But quickly, with how native the system is, we end up naturally having more and more super users that are able to help each other. I think that's what has enabled a lot of success in our deployment, and we are looking to extend it even further in the coming months. And as I mentioned earlier, it's a system of choice. It's in our roadmap in terms of our digital infrastructure of our ERP platform, our TMS platforms. That is our global solution for either external partners to connect through for our business or internal capability, which means that the platform is now open to further global utilization by other partners in other regions within Imerys.
Thank you for these answers. So we're now at the end of this webinar. Of course, any additional questions that we hadn't answered right now will be answered personally by email. So I would like to thank all the panelists here and let you close this webinar with your words. Everyone, it's up to you.
Yeah. Thank you for the opportunity to talk about the system, our journey. I think it has been a fulfilling one for the team cross-functionally. It's something quite different, and we need to do the step change to continue to grow. And so our goal is to always grow as a company. I hope other companies are going to do the same to provide even stronger, better user experience for their people and make the work even more fulfilling. And maybe we're doing one small piece add to the global society, but we are able to provide a bit more simplicity, a bit more collaboration and visibility in a more and more digital world in a way that provides a more simplified, more clear solution, not necessarily more and more complexity with more systems. Quite the inverse. And it's through this work, we're connecting as people, we're having more productive, better conversation, and reducing the stress level of, can we trust this data? Why is it so hard to move through the system? There's a goodness and value beyond just the tool that we're able to capitalize on as well. Just with the partners we work with, just like the steamship lines, our own people, our own teams internally, and with our customers. And our focus is to continue to build on that momentum.
Thank you. Have a great rest of your day.
Thank
you.
you. Bye, guys.
Bye.